All right, welcome everybody to the 17th episode of the Advisor Tech Book Live podcast. We had some audio issues, but now we're recording on Zoom and all is good. Welcome, Tim Brown. He's a financial advisor, and we actually used to work in the same building together in Lexington, Kentucky. So that's how we know each other.
That is
What's up,
true.
Tim?
I'm one of the few people who's actually seen analog Joe Moss, and I
Analog, yeah.
consider it a privilege.
Very few. I tell most people I don't exist in real life, but you can't you can't agree with that.
Yeah. So that I mean that would be the next step, right? It's just an AI generated uh tech, tech advisor.
Yeah, and that would completely defeat the point of anything I've ever said. But yeah, that would be. So you recently started your own RIA, correct?
Yes, yeah. So I had started the process of filing back in the fall of 2024. It's about a 3 to 6 month process, longer if you DIY it, which I did with the kind help of Jonathan Pliska over at High Knoll, where I used to be. He was very supportive in letting me, use his ADV and other things as a jumping off point. So it's a rare opportunity to be able to collaboratively launch your own thing. So that was a privilege for me. But yeah, so the state approved things right at the beginning of April of 2025. And I've been off and running since then.
April 2025. And you've been growing like mad, right?
Yes, yeah. At least this is one of the things that I'm sure talk about is organic growth bringing on new clients? Is it getting your current clients to like continue to invest and grow their wealth? So for me, it's been a little of both, but yeah, I've definitely successfully brought on the number of new clients that I want to bring on. The next step is uh, you know elevating which type of clients I work with, but which is a good jumping off point into what we'll probably talk about today. But I will let you ask the questions in your order.
I'll try to. So recently I wrote a piece on Finny. Finny's probably one of the leading AI prospecting tools for financial advisors. And when I think of AI prospecting, I think of email outreach, LinkedIn outreach. Some people are even doing direct mail outreach, typically with content that's being drafted by AI. That was my understanding of what Finny was doing. I think Finny is kind of pivoting away from that, or some people are just using the platform and realizing that actually doesn't work very well. So now they're trying to use the underlying systems, but write all the content themselves, which kind of takes the whole AI part out of it. But I'm sure we'll get into that. Anyway, Tim reached out to me on LinkedIn, as he's very good at doing, and said, people have all this access to all this private data, phone numbers, addresses, mortgage balances, where people work, who their kids are. Is it even right, or should we say maybe like ethical, to reach out to someone on private contact information that you have not sourced directly from them? Meaning you have not gotten their permission to contact them on their digits, shall we say.
Yes.
It's a fascinating conversation, and not one, I mean, it's a natural progression of the whole conversation, but not one that I had had with anyone yet. So I'm glad you brought it up. Um, what is your take on contacting people with information that you have not gotten from them?
Sure. Well, so first of all, kind of, I think what consumers don't know is kind of what's murky about this because what's happening behind the scenes, and I know of at least one vendor that I've at least initially worked with, and again, once I kind of saw under the hood, it is a little concerning because what big tech companies are doing is they're able to aggregate and combine a combination of both private data and publicly available data, right? Because the big picture of what they're trying to do is provide advisors with predictive information about when a consumer is most likely is most in need of our services over particular things, right? So what this looks like is if the most low-hanging fruit is right if you've changed jobs, right? If you've changed jobs, you probably have a workplace retirement plan at your old job that you may need to roll over. Of course, what's going to work best for you and what works best for the advisor are not always the same, right? If you're in a situation where you need to make backdoor Roth contributions, then you probably don't want to roll that into an IRA. But you don't necessarily know that, and you might not connect with an advisor who's going to tell you that. or other things like, again, if you receive an inheritance, like if a family member's will goes through probate, the fact that you were listed on that will is publicly available information, and you probably don't know that. If you file for divorce, that is publicly available information. But the other thing that big tech companies are doing is they're taking the publicly available data, and they're combining it with privately available data, which is usually data that you have, if when it's like at your, not to pick on Target, I don't necessarily know that they are doing this, but anytime you fill out those membership programs and you click on a terms of service, buried somewhere in that terms of service, you're giving permission to whoever you're signing up with to sell information about you. And you don't know you're doing that, right? So one of the things the vendor I work with uses as predictive information is whether or not somebody's just had a new child. Now, they don't actually know that you have had a new child. What they do know is that you've started buying more diapers and formula at the grocery store. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, that is
Yeah.
that is the information that they have. And then they piece that information together with other things they know about you, which is, again, if you own a home, they might not necessarily know what your mortgage balance is, but they know how much you paid for the house when you bought it, and they can sort of do some predictive analysis. But again, basically they, right, so they aggregate that data. And currently, again, I think this is because this is new and they're trying to build up a subscriber base. They will sell me that information about you for $1, right? Which for me is like, that is dirt cheap, as far as a high level of detailed information about a customer, right? But then the problem is, like, I have that information, but what do I do with it, right? Because truth be told, if you are in the middle of a divorce and you're getting a QDRO, and you're going to get half of your spouse's workplace retirement plan, right? You're going to need to do something with that. But again, so then the question is, like, what's, and this is where kind of the ball, hopefully putting the ball in the court of consumers, with through transparency, right? Like being upfront about, like, whether you like it or not, um, you know, your data's in the system, and there are, a wide variety of firms or institutions who are spending a lot of money to try to get that QDRO when you get it, and put it somewhere, which may or may not be the best thing for you, right? You need to put it somewhere.
Right.
Anyway, right. So that's the problem of, like, I have access to that data, but if I reach out to you because I know that you filed for divorce and you don't, or somebody did, and you don't know that I know that, right? That's just weird and creepy. Now, a
Yeah.
lot of there's not transparency, right? So if you get a card in the mail, you might not, you have no idea that they sent you a card for that reason, especially if they don't spell it out, right? So usually what will happen is you'll get just a generic mailer, and you won't know why you got the mailer, when in fact the reason you got the mailer is because you showed up in a database because you were mentioned in a divorce petition, and then they aggregated all your other data together.
Yeah. No, it's very. So I think what I'm trying to do is just bring these kinds of details out into the public so we know what we're dealing with. I think advisors are desperate for growth, desperate for new AUM, desperate for clients. These AI prospecting tools that are coming out say, hey, we've got all this amazing data and you can use it to, target exactly who you want to, and you can reach them, every way except knocking on the door, basically.
Right. Which, I
Um,
mean, you could even do that if you really wanted to,
right, which would
because you do know where they live.
you can knock on the door and be like, "Hey, I heard you just went through a divorce." Like that's just that would be incredibly weird. The other thing is like they're also doing other things like identifying website visitors. I think what's not getting out though is just how badly these kinds of outbound perform. So like I turned it on for my website and I started recognizing some of the names of people that were visiting my website. And so like I would message them on LinkedIn or I'd write them an email and say, "Hey, I saw you went to my website. Is there something in particular you're looking for?" Not a single person wrote back. And these are people that like know me. Um, the point being, it's great you can identify visitors on your website, but that's not a great, like, people don't want every website they're going to being tracked by companies, and they certainly don't want you to reach out when they've hung out on your website for a few minutes and then decide not to do anything. Like they decide not to do anything because they don't want to do anything. Um, It's just a very interesting conversation. Any more thoughts on like, you know, sh should advisors use this data or should they use this data just very... So it's interesting. So like when you take all this data and make it available to anybody with a dollar, now you know some advisors are going to use this data very carefully, very appropriately, very thoughtfully, and some advisors are going to use it nefariously, like just absolutely spam blast everybody, possibly even hire Tesla Optimus robots to knock on doors. Like you don't know where they're going to take this.
Right.
Um, so like they're not doing anything illegal. They're just doing something that's not really good for humans in a way. I'll stop there.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. And I guess what we're learning is, is the free market in the midst of pushing back, right? Using your website as an example, right? You're sort of getting some immediate feedback that, hey, maybe people don't like to know that you can see every time they visit your website, right? Like, you know, theoretically the workaround, like I can shop for financial advisors in incognito mode with my browser, right? And or go through a VPN. Right. So there's a workaround for that. But ideally we don't want to push consumers to the point that they feel like that's what they have to do. And most aren't going to do it. And right, so using your example, there's sort of two things you can do. You can subtly like reach out when you see a person visited your website, you can sort of reach out to them as a touch point, just like, hey, I was thinking about you. I hope you're doing well. And they don't, so you're reaching out because they visited your website. They just don't know that's why you're reaching out, right? That's one thing you can do with that information. Of course, the other thing you can do is just like not collect that information, right? So, that's sort of, I feel like the crossroads that we're at, which is, kind of maybe that next step for particularly like the big certification organizations, right? Like, I don't think there's any CFP ethics curriculum on big data yet, right? I know I just, passed this level one CFA exam. And I know that
Congrats.
right now there's thanks, just intentionally sliding that in there. But,
There you go.
there's not really, you know, content in their curriculum on ethics, and they are very like I have a master's degree in ethics and I have a hard time with their ethics curriculum as far as figuring out what the right answer on questions is. It's that like granular. Um, right. But so that's the next step for the industry or for the profession, is, starting that conversation about what is ethical, to do with this information.
So let's just assume, maybe this is a bad assumption, but let's assume independent financial advisors starting their own RIAs are slightly higher, slightly more ethical than wirehouses and broker dealers. Well, I shifted. There's like a giant scope of like the wirehouse to the independent financial advisor. I want to make a general statement that doesn't like call anybody out, but there's more ethical human beings and there's less ethical large corporations. Like one of your points was how are independent advisors even going to compete if these billion-dollar corporations are sending 100 postcards to someone when they go through a divorce? So this person goes through a divorce and then they open their mailbox and every day they've got, let's say, 15 postcards from financial advisors in the area saying, we should meet. So I'm just trying to take like all the way to the end. Like
Right.
what does this AI prospecting look like? The truth is, hardly any advisors are using it yet. We're not there yet, but if everybody starts doing it, that's where we will end up, and the entire industry will hurt because of it.
Right.
Um, so what's the antidote?
So to me, and this is where I think this is what I'm hoping to implement in 2026. Because to me, again, the antidote is transparency, and education. Right. So kind of what I rather than using this information to specifically target those people. And this is where it kind of circles back to organic growth, right? Organic growth is within my personal network, people that know and trust me, broadcasting to them, look, the reason that I mentioned that, divorce is a critical time to talk to an advisor is because, like it or not, like you're going to show up in a big data database and a lot of people are going to try to, get your attention. for better or for worse as far as how they want to help you, right? Because, bottom line, even if using because for consumers, it's really a degree of like how much value are you going to get, right? If a big wirehouse like takes your QDRO and they park it in an IRA and they take 5% off the top in A shares, right? Now, they're still providing you with some value in that if otherwise you would have just cashed it in and paid a tax penalty, they're still putting you in a better situation than if you had just like not known what to do with it, cashed it in, paid a penalty, right? But relative to other things that you could do, right, losing 5% off the top with A shares is probably not the most efficient, optimal choice. But you as a consumer don't necessarily have the information to do that, right? So I think the antidote, at least what I want to try, is again putting educational resources out into my organic network and saying, look, when your friend is, it may feel weird, but when your friend is going through a divorce, and again, you don't have to like put them in touch with me. Here's an educational resource that they can look at on their own without engaging with me, just to kind of get a better idea of why people might be reaching out to them, so they can make a more informed decision, but hopefully take ownership of recognizing, okay, I'm going through this, and if I take the initiative to make a more informed decision about how to go about this, I'll be in a better situation. So I think to me that's the connecting point between organic growth and big data is just letting people know why all these companies are going to be reaching out to them or not reaching out to them, right? Because again, part of what this data cross references is, it makes predictions about what your income and net worth is, right? So if you're going through a divorce and you make less than $100,000 a year, no one's calling you, right? Now you still need help, but if somebody does, it's probably an advisor or it's probably not an advisor. It's probably a salesperson who has, but again, you're falling through to the sort of bottom tier, which isn't necessarily fair, right? Because it's not necessarily predictive of what your actual potential is. But and again, part of why I run, one of my core values is for my firm is that we want to make good quality services available to everybody, regardless of their level of wealth, right? How to
Right.
execute that is really difficult.
Sure.
But at least it's something that I am trying to do.
Yeah. No, we're working on that. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Subscription and one-to-many financial planning is coming, or shall I call it life planning? Um, no, that's a great point. I mean, I love the words like uncomparable, Kristen Luke's book. There's unforgettable. Um, there's other unwords, but basically, like if there's 300,000 advisors, how can you pick a niche so that you are the only advisor in the country, or at least in your state, that works with this particular group of 100 people? And the more niche you are, the more you will have common experiences across your client base. And if one of them goes through something that you're able to help them with, and then you can take that knowledge and apply it to your other very similar households, now you're, the number one expert in the world for this particular niche and their particular financial challenges. Um, so that's, I think it's easy to say, well, there's nine different times during a person's life when money is in motion, and so let's target all nine of them. But I think the reality is you need to pick a niche, maybe even pick a particular event. Like I work with people before and after they get married or something, or and maybe pick some of the positive ones. I mean, there's negative ones too. There's pros and cons, but my point being like pick a particular one and focus on it. Because I can imagine walking into a big firm and they've got like nine different flyers, like, are you getting divorced? Have you just had a baby? Are you getting married? And nobody wants that. I don't think. I don't think anyone wants to market like that or be marketed to like that.
Yeah. Right. And again, that is sort of the question then is, even if you pick a niche, right? Because that's, bringing back to this or coming back to this big data problem. If you want to niche down, the tools available to you to do that are tremendous, right? If you specifically say like, yeah, I want to work for aerospace engineers in Nashville, Tennessee, um, the aerospace and all the data on aerospace engineers in Nashville, Tennessee are available for sale,
Right.
right? So you can get all that information and specifically reach out to them. And again, maybe that is a logical, ethical conclusion of like, if I really have a good reason, if I have a background, like if I'm a retired Lockheed Martin engineer, and I went out and got my CFP, um, right, then I probably do have a value add above your average advisor in working with that demographic, right? So that's sort of, at that point, again, that's certainly a more ethical use of that data than than me buying it, right?
Right.
But of course, the flip side of that is if you really are plugged in uh, to, if you really did well in that industry in aerospace engineering, you should have a lot of context where you can organically like work that market,
Yeah, I don't.
and then you don't need the data.
I love to save advisors money. Advisors waste an enormous amount of money on technology, and typically a third or even a half of the tech they're not even using. They've signed up for it. They'd like to be using it. They'd like to think they'll eventually have time to be using it, but the reality is they're not using it. They probably won't ever use it. Um, and but also like if there's an AI prospecting tool that's $500 and there's one that's $100 a month, like if the data is exactly the same, why wouldn't you choose the cheaper one? Just
Right.
because the more expensive one has, better marketing or you haven't heard of the cheaper one yet. So like I'm trying to direct advisors from tools that are overpriced or tools that aren't actually helping them achieve their goals to tools that I do think will help them achieve their goals. And the first thing I would say is like go to LinkedIn first. Like use LinkedIn for free. LinkedIn has amazing filtering capabilities. None of the data that people are sharing on LinkedIn, at least on LinkedIn's platform, is like the data that they've decided to share, they've actually shared it on purpose. Um, so for me, like if I'm trying to connect with financial advisors, I just type in CFP people second connections and I connect with like 20 or 30 CFPs per day. Um, and have built a massive connection list of advisors. And so that's how I go about it, but I don't even need to pay for a tool to do that.
Yeah. And that's where, and that's one of the questions about use, right? So currently I use LinkedIn Premium and because it does give me more specific feedback of, people who changed jobs in the last 90 days. And right. So I have searches that kind of tell me, and I can drill it down by profession, right? So I get a list of like attorneys in Lexington who just, either they just started working at a new firm, right? So it could be that they're doing that for the first time. Right. And I can calibrate that by years of experience. But probably to your point, it's like if I'm paying extra for data that ultimately isn't really going to help me because that's just going to weird people out if I use it, then is that a good use of my resources? So I guess throwing it back to you, like, you know, talk talk me out of LinkedIn Premium, or be like, oh no, I guess maybe that works for you.
Um, my LinkedIn is currently absolutely blowing up, and I'm not even paying for LinkedIn Premium. I don't pay LinkedIn anything right now. Although I do I do boost certain posts. So there's a new feature. It was first just for like thought leader posts, but now I don't know if it's accessible to anybody or maybe anybody with an ad account. But like if you have a post, you just want to get in front of more of people, you just click the boost button, throw $20 at it or $100. I mean, as I make more money, I'll throw larger and larger amounts of money at it. But like that actually works because if you have posts that really resonate with, I don't remember your example, but like airline pilots in Tennessee or something, um, and then you boost your post to airline pilots in Tennessee, like I think that's a very good way to get in front of your target market. And I'm doing
Mhm.
the same thing on YouTube actually. So like if there's videos, even like this video, if I want to get this video in front of more financial advisors, I'll put some money behind it. YouTube will boost it for me. I actually get a lot of subscribers that way. So that's I am currently testing like boosting with ads, and I think that's actually a decent thing. But I'm not currently a LinkedIn Premium or Sales Navigator subscriber.
Yeah. So now I guess nuts and bolts on that. Does LinkedIn when you boost the post, does it let you be that precise in who you boost it for?
Um, there are some filters. You can filter by industry, you can filter by job title, I think you can filter by location. I can share that. I can do a video on that at some time that might be helpful for people actually. But
Yeah.
and I think what's cool is like you can do like spend $10, do one post and try $10, see if you get results from it. Um, Always keeping in mind that being authentic and human and creating epically awesome content will always beat, um, I guess you could call it like more fake marketing. I
Right.
think ads are not natural marketing. I would like absolutely use things that push the gas on stuff, but like work on work on using your own brain to write content, to create content, to connect with your niche. And that's in my mind way more important than anything you use an AI prospecting tool for.
Yeah. So, and speaking of organic growth, that's the one advantage that I have over giant wirehouses, is that I can actually get in a room and be physically present with people here in Lexington, right?
Yeah,
So I partly because it's helpful for me because I run my tech stack as a solo RA owner, right? So I go to, there's a Lexington data technology group, right? And I just go and I, listen to their like, because it's useful information to me to learn about like how Microsoft databases work, right? Because I use Microsoft SharePoint for my all my client files and things like that. Because again,
yeah,
it's like way less expensive than Redtail, and it does what I need it to do, which is securely let clients upload files.
yeah.
Right? It's not flashy, but it works. And ultimately, I spend less money on that, and I have more money to like do other nice things for my clients.
So two questions I want to focus on. We can do one at a time, but first of all, maybe like how do you define organic growth? What's your understanding of what organic versus inorganic is? And then the second, if you're willing to share, like it'd be fun to to learn what tech you decided to go with to start your RA, what you've tried, what you've canceled, maybe what you're using currently. So those two questions.
Sure. So I kind of think of organic growth as really just anything that you do to bring on a client that is not either buying a book or inheriting. you know, I joke about it, paying the iron price, if you follow Game of Thrones, right?
Okay.
But right, basically, like I get the lead myself, or I also not buying leads, right? So to me, if you're buying leads from Smart Asset, and that's how you're bringing on clients, right? Not really organic growth. Um, that's probably maybe semi-organic, right? Because you at least still have to call them and close the deal versus because that's again part of the educational thing for clients or for the public, right? If you get transferred to a new advisor because they purchase your account from somebody else, like you have no obligation to stick with that person,
Right.
right?
I like
Like,
to simplify it like very simple. Organic means they said yes to you. You
right.
pitched them an offer, they said yes to you. Inorganic means they said yes to somebody else.
Yeah,
And
that is a much simpler way to do that. So thanks for
you
cutting me off. This is the problem with getting a master's degree in philosophy is you like over explain everything. So
you bought somebody else's yes, which means that it comes with less trust, like and less lifetime value, almost guaranteed. Um,
exactly. Yeah.
so that's why getting someone to say yes to you is more valuable than a yes that you bought from somebody else.
Got it. All right. Well, I'm gonna copy that, and from going forward, that's how I'm gonna explain it, quoting Joe Moss.
There you go. Go for it. And I'll like any post where you quote me.
Yeah. Yeah. So moving on to my tech stack, I feel like I probably have the leanest, cheapest tech stack of any RIA, maybe in the country, right? For what which may be too cheap, right? So I partly again unsophisticated. I currently use a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet for my CRM, and I have a big stack of business cards
Okay.
on my desk, right? Because that doesn't cost me anything other than, right. So I pay for Microsoft Offices. They have a business package that's
Yeah,
like
12
You know,
bucks
I
a
think,
month.
yeah, 25, but it does, it does a bunch of different stuff.
Okay.
So I have a combination. I use SharePoint and Microsoft Automate or Power Automate for client file sharing, right? So clients click a link, they get a or they click one link and they get a request because I also use it with prospective clients because I don't want to make prospective clients jump through the hoops of creating a login before they send me documents, right? That's sort of a barrier to entry. So they have a way to request a temporary link where they upload their files. Power Automate immediately like sweeps those files that they upload into a private folder. So if somebody else gets a hold of their link, they can't get their tax returns. Right. So that's how I upload that. And then I use Calendly to automate, reminders and things like that for the calendar.
Yep.
So that, saves me having to have a virtual assistant. And then I use Altruist for billing and performance reporting because I have few enough accounts that they don't charge me for that yet.
Nice.
The downside of a free performance report is that it's, about what you would expect from a free performance report. It doesn't tell you very much.
Sure.
Right. And then I use currently I have everybody on Schwab as the custodian. There are some things that might come up where it might be worth trying out Altruist. Um, but ultimately, like and then I have a professional Claude account that I pay 20 bucks a month for
Okay.
that I use for really writing Python code to quickly build trading files and things like that. Um,
What um what do you like about Schwab better than Altruist that you're setting up accounts on Schwab instead?
what I like about them, I'm perfectly content. Like if somebody can sell me on Altruist, I'm still flexible. So what I like about Schwab, I came to Schwab from Pershing, right? So
Well,
before
that's
I,
why. I mean,
yeah,
you're moving from the worst custodian in the world to the second worst. No, I'm
yeah,
teasing.
right. So I mean, Pershing is just so opaque and not user friendly.
Yeah,
But so actually, what I really love about Schwab is their phone support is fantastic. So like I have one client who every time we have to try to log in and sign something, he loses his username and password.
okay.
Right. So whenever that happens, we call in, we get somebody right away. They're very professional, and they're always able to like help us do that. I another like same client. I had an accountant really mess things up where we had made they had told us that the client was an S corp when they weren't, and right. So basically, we had to recharacterize like a full year's worth of SEP IRA contributions. Like Schwab did that really, really. They made it as smooth as it could go.
Nice.
Right. So it's just when they seem to be really great at solving problems when they come up. Their phone support is great. So it's I just I've not run into something where it's like, oh, I wish that I could do X, but Schwab won't let me, right? Other than donor advised funds are a little wonky at the moment. And again, free market, ideally Schwab pivots and they start offering fractional shares.
Sure.
Hopefully that's down the pike. And if they decide they don't want to do that, then it might be a different conversation. But ultimately, like I have just been really happy with them so far. And again, it's incredibly cost efficient. I domestic trades, they don't charge my clients anything. There's a little fee on international ADRs and stuff like that, and then it's like $10 to buy a bond. But their search engine for looking for bonds works really, really well. I guess really, again, I haven't seen anything else, so it might be terrible, but I was able to place 100 grand worth of municipal bonds for somebody in about an hour, being able to look up a bunch of different stuff. So, and
Yeah.
I've just have been happy with them so far.
No, that's good. I mean, we don't need to bash a company if we don't need to.
Right.
I mean, the running joke is you have to call Schwab 3 times to get the right answer, which is the experience that I've had more often than not. But also I've worked with some great Schwab service reps and gotten great results. I think I'm just always looking for the newest, best thing. And I would just say that like the entire Schwab user interface is 10 or 20 years dated, meaning modern tech just looks different than Schwab does. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean Schwab's not handling the money well or something. That just means I prefer to log into tech I enjoy looking at, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Right. And that's a good, and bottom line for me, like most of my clients don't even log into their accounts more than like twice a year.
Right.
Right. So what it looks like to them, doesn't really add value for me or for them.
Right.
Because part of my job is, I don't if they're constantly if they're logging in to look at their stuff every week, I'm probably not doing my job well because that means you know, they don't feel secure.
So that is a very cheap tech stack. Do you have any other tools?
No, I mean, other than that, I write all my own posts. I know I did use again, Claude I used to for help writing my compliance manual
Sure.
and drafting. I'm rolling out a new. I'm adding 321 and 338 services on 401ks, and so it
Okay.
at least drafted a client agreement for that. Right now, even I still read it because I want to make sure that it didn't hallucinate anything. But for crunching out busy work, it's actually quite helpful for that.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I don't disagree. I enjoy AI for creating complicated Excel formulas. It's very good at doing that.
yeah.
Um, do you have a phone platform?
I have a phone,
So you
so
you don't have a separate business line, basically.
I know I do. I have a Samsung Galaxy 22 or S22 or something like that. It's a dual SIM phone, so I
Oh,
have
nice.
yeah, I have one phone that gets has two numbers go to it.
That's
Yeah.
that's smart. If someone wants to build the cheapest tech stack in the world, Tim Brown is your man.
Yes, yeah, I'm happy to
Um,
talk to you.
financial planning tool. Do you use anything for financial planning?
Yes, again, Microsoft Excel spreadsheets. Because and again it doesn't look the prettiest, but I could also like if I wanted to make an ex there you can do some amazing things with Excel spreadsheets and make them look really professional, or you would never know it was an Excel spreadsheet.
Sure.
um,
So I
right, so
guess
there's
that begs the question, like, what are your client deliverables, or what do you show them in meetings, or how do you run sales calls? Because most advisors have two or three tools for each of these things.
Yeah, so one of the, most, I have a couple clients who are either in or approaching retirement, and then most of my other clients they're in the accumulation phase, where they're, mid to late 30s, 40s. So mostly we're looking at like what sort of progress they're making towards their goals, right? So but just showing like accumulation of investments where we're looking like 20, 30 years down the road. We're still using pretty back of the napkin math on that anyway,
Right.
right? But I do use a more complicated spreadsheet for or like a discounted cash flow model where we're looking at hopefully getting. I base everything around the risk-free rate of return, right? Because the risk-free rate of return is going to move up and down every year. So we have, for money that you need in the next 5 years, we just want to get the risk-free rate of return, whatever that is. If we can get more than that, that's awesome. And then, right, but those are all bottom line without over explaining this. These are all things you can pretty easily illustrate in an Excel spreadsheet, right? You don't need a really, I've worked at other firms in the past where we use Money Guide Pro and it generated this huge like 120-page plan,
Yeah.
and no one cares,
Right.
right? Other than Money Guide Pro, because they get paid a lot of money.
Well, I think that's
Uh,
that's a huge problem that this industry has that has recently been articulated to me very well. We're building all these dashboards and deliverables and presentables that advisors want, but clients don't. They literally do not care about these reports and these presentations and these charts and graphs that advisors love to see. And so there's actually a giant disconnect. It's like, why don't we create client portals that clients actually want to use? What would you say, what do your clients want from you? What are you providing them that they're paying you for?
so the main value to me is helping them do things that they wouldn't do otherwise. Right. So one of the things that I do show on this is one of my LinkedIn post charts that I just need to keep repeating over and over is right like somebody who starts investing a year sooner, even if they get a lower rate of return. Like if you start investing now and you get a 5-year rate of return and somebody else starts investing next year and they get 8% of return, it'll take them like 10 years to catch you.
So is that knowledge or is that accountability or what is the actual underlying product that you're selling there?
Probably both, right? So that's an example of both knowledge and accountability.
Okay,
The other thing is, I mean, so helping them make tax efficient decisions, right, is one of the other
sure.
things, right? So as an example, I was walking the client through their open enrollment, and they sort of didn't realize how powerful a dependent care FSA is, right? So you can get, if you use because they've got 2 kids in daycare, right? So by them putting money into the dependent care FSA, they're going to save, you know, they're not going to pay payroll taxes, and then they're not going to pay 22% in federal income tax, right? But then the next thing that we do is we specifically like, all right, we specifically save those dollars, right? Let's take those dollars that you did not pay in taxes and let's put it to work, right? And still giving them the choice, right? Like, you know, here are 4 different things you can do with this. Do you want to throw it against your mortgage? Do you want to throw it against your car payments, or do you want to throw it into a brokerage account? Right now, conflict of interest. I don't get paid for those first 2 things initially, right? But what I do is, if hopefully I've built trust with you. So if you just decide, you know what, I'm going to throw that the tax savings I got from my dependent care FSA, let's throw that on my car payment, right? But now we've documented that we did that, so we can still keep track of the ongoing value of what we saved in interest by throwing that against the car payment, right? So helping them like think through, all right, what are the options? But then giving them the agency where I just, I give them a few different choices and they pick the one that makes them feel the best, right? And because it's not always about hyper optimizing, right?
Yeah.
So
No, I'll stop you on that one. So,
yes.
Kitces actually did a study on this. So, firms and advisors that are focused on efficiency make half as much money as firms that are focused on value and quality and depth.
Mhm.
Literally, like they ask them which is your focus, and then they report on their revenue or their AUM, and there's literally making half as people focused on efficiency make half as much as people focused on value and depth and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so that was a fascinating data point.
Well,
What
that's good to hear.
Yeah, so keep focusing on value. So I mean, you got an incredible lean tech stack. Probably takes you less than an hour to manage it and run your operations. What do you do with all this free time?
Um, that's a good question. So that, mainly there's still a lot of things that you have to do on your own to run your own RA.
Sure.
Well, one of the things I've been doing obviously was like studying a lot for the CFA exam, so which
Yeah.
fortunately like paid dividends, so I don't have to do that again, or at least not for level one. Now I've got to start studying for level two. Right. But there's still, long-term value add of, again, one of the things I don't do is that I don't outsource portfolio management, right? So that's the payoff for my clients is that they don't pay an extra 30, 40, 50 basis points for a third-party portfolio manager.
What do you
Other
use
than
to get
that,
market data, or even like what do you go to on a daily basis to check what the market's doing?
did that I just, Schwab has some pretty decent tools to keep you up to speed on that.
You're a hardcore minimalist.
Yeah.
You are the antidote to the industry's tech problem.
Other than that, I mean, so at least for personal data, I use, again, I use Claude sometimes to write Python code to scrape Yahoo Finance, but also actually if you're another tool, I use First Trust Apex, is a completely free to use portfolio illustration tool
Okay.
that is available for if you're an investment advisor, you can sign up with First Trust. Again, I don't know what they do with that data. I'm sure they use it as an onboarding point to like, collect my information and mail me stuff
Sure.
about all their different funds that other than I do use their buffered UITs. But other than that, I don't, I just delete all their emails. And when they call me and ask me to coffee, and I'm like, no, that's a no thanks. Because I, you know, trying to go above and beyond when it comes to like, receiving compensation for even if it's a cup of coffee. But yeah, First Trucks Apex for doing portfolio illustrations. Again, as far as the information that clients need, it's great. It gives them a nice idea of comparing their model portfolio to um,
what
what we're actually doing. Yeah, but it's
what
again,
they
it's a
have currently.
fantastic tool
Yeah,
for zero. It cost me $0 to use that.
that's amazing. So
It is.
what are your goals for 2026, which is 13 days in?
Yeah. So I mean, so my goals are, hopefully to add 15 to 20 households
Okay,
for 2026. I still think in terms of households. Obviously I have revenue goals, but if I feel like if I focus on the value add for families and or households, right, in the long run, the revenue will take care of itself, right? Because if I'm stepping into the shoes of the consumer, ideally I don't want to just be a number, right? Where I'm worth like, $1 million in AUM, right? I'm a person who's trying to retire or achieve financial independence, and be able to like, buy a fishing boat or whatever it is I want to do. Right.
so
So
th
if I,
this is
anyways, yeah,
something our
go ahead.
human intelligence actually does super well. So like if you walk into Walmart and like imagine every person above their head has a hovering dollar sign. So they either have one, two, or three dollar signs. Like your brain is processing all this data like automatically. So like if you walk into Walmart and like I want to look for people that would make good prospects for my financial planning practice. Um, this is the kind of data that like you can produce naturally and you don't need to scrape it off the internet or buy it from people. Just
Yeah.
just a random idea.
Right. But some of that is again, if you're broadcasting, right? Like I have a client that I've helped navigate through a merger where their company was bought out by a bigger company, and so all their RSUs got cashed in at once, and so that created some tax challenges,
Sure.
right, that they had to deal with, and so spinning that experience into like, here's how I help this client. If you have RSUs or you're getting a big, buyout from a merger, uh, obviously that's a win-win for everybody. Um,
Yeah, so actually just today I added the Become Unforgettable course on school to my recommended tech stack. Kristen Manna is one of the advisors that's in the program, and she does it fabulously. Her posts get like 100 reactions and tons of comments. But you can literally every single post is exactly the same format.
yeah,
I think he's very good at teaching people how to do storytelling to their audiences. So that's something I'm starting to recommend is his course.
yeah.
Um, but that's any, what are your main marketing methods currently? Like what are the levers you're trying to pull?
So I do tons of in-person networking,
Okay,
and trying to branch out and away from um, standard, like I have completely cut out the Lexington or Commerce Lexington. So the more run-of-the-mill networking things. Now I shout out if you are in Central Kentucky, a guy named Drew Sutton and I co-host a professional networking meetup once a month. It's actually LinkedIn local. So that's, other than that, I specifically go to, there's, in Lexington, there's an organization called Blue Map Kentucky, which is the Bluegrass Merger and Acquisition Professionals. Right. So connecting with people who are, involved in helping people buy and sell businesses. Um, and there's another one called Bluegrass Financial Leaders, which is, accounting professionals or people just in different aspects of finance. So I go to a lot of that. Other than that, again, it's just, and my challenge for 26 is also consistency in yeah, just trying to do social media posts. So one thing I think you talk about a lot is the importance of building a personal brand, right? Because we're learning in the 21st century, it is that people follow personalities and not necessarily brands anymore, or at least
yeah,
consumer brands, right? So one of the things that Edward Jones and JP Morgan and Merrill Lynch are going to run into, probably, not for 20 years. But, if you're 40 years and under, like those names don't mean anything to you.
right. In fact, they don't. Someone was asking me why I like Altruist more than Schwab, and it's like as a millennial, I don't even want Schwab. Like I
Hmm.
would never put my money on Schwab because there's literally hundreds of better platforms that are with way better intuitive interfaces that are way hipper and cooler, and there will actually be a transfer between people that don't even like the older custodians and platforms where they actually trust the newer ones better. We'll see.
Yeah.
Right.
which is, and that's the nice thing for me is that I don't have it for me, it's not a one or the other,
Right.
right? So yeah, so my older clients who recognize and feel more confident about having their money with a recognizable brand,
Sure.
that's where their money is. And the people that want the thing that's new and cool and sleek, we can put them on Altruist, which is really, again, it's being attentive to what helps my clients feel comfortable, right? That's the value add is that my clients feel secure about where their money is. Um, but yeah, so I don't remember where I spun off with that,
No, it's
but
okay. I mean, the key is, I mean, Alex Ramosi said the key to business success is volume. Like if you want to be good at something, do it 10,000 times more than the next person.
yeah,
I'm going maybe slightly overboard on that concept, like doing 2 podcasts a day, writing on LinkedIn like 10 times, doing multiple Substacks. Um, but if you have a message and you're able to produce that much content, like you will reach your goals a lot faster if you produce massive volumes of content.
yeah.
And it resonates with people. And it resonates. I mean, it's got to resonate.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just continuing to, I try to write things that are relatable and genuine. And again, I do write all my own stuff. I don't use LLMs for that. Partly again, I wrote 350,000 words on, working on my master's degree. So I'm
Sure.
not going to punt to an LLM, which again is probably more of a hindrance because I do, as you've noticed, right? I like take way too many words to say something simple sometimes.
Yeah, and I take too few words sometimes. It is interesting the different ways. And even that, like you probably will naturally relate better to people that think and talk more like you, and I'll relate naturally to people that think and talk like me. As there's just so many different ways to slice a niche, basically.
Exactly.
I mean, Seth Godin says it very simple. He's like, people like you think like you or something. Is
Yeah. And
uh,
some, that's the interesting flip side. We could do a whole nother podcast on this. Is really for me, I just, broadcast at my wavelength and kind of maybe let the consumers figure out if I'm in their niche.
Right. No, exactly. I love that concept. We're more like law of attraction versus law of attract, don't pressure. Well,
Right.
I have an idea for a way to close this up. So I actually just saw Andrew Ross Sorkin on Josh Brown's podcast, 1929. I don't know if you've seen this book.
No, but
Um,
oh, no, I did see it pop up.
Inside the greatest crash in Wall Street history and how it shattered a nation. So they asked him on the podcast, like, are we in a bubble? Is the market about to crash? Without, I mean, actually, you're licensed to give investment advice. I'm not, so I can't give any advice. But what are your thoughts on all this?
I haven't read the book, but I assume what the book probably says is something to the effect of like after our current securities licenses and laws are still very much in reaction to that crash, right? All the different, the Securities Act of 33, 34, the Investment Advisor Act of 1940, were all specifically to put in like preventative measures to keep that from happening again. And a lot of those measures are still in place, right?
Hmm,
So it is there's no way for people to buy on margin in equities to the degree that they could in 1929.
sure.
Right now, what we did let people do is in 2000, in the early 2000s, we let people borrow on margin from their home equity. That wasn't really there, right? So that was a different problem. So then but all that to say, there are laws that are still in place to try to keep like things like that from happening again. Which is, not that's not investment advice. That's just here's how the law works. Um, so again, I don't know if that's what's in the book, but
I
if
don't I
if I
don't
was
know
writing
yet
a
either.
book,
It
that's what
literally
I that's what
literally
I'd
came
write.
today. I was shocked
Yeah.
how thick it is. What why are gold and silver spiking right now?
Why are gold and silver? That couldn't tell you. No, I think as far as gold, it is, whether or not it's um, actually does what it's supposed to. Yeah, I mean, when people feel anxious, they do buy gold, and that does drive up the price of gold, whether it's perception versus reality. Um, Silver, I think it's actually utilization that like people need. There's some things people need silver for. That's a very unsophisticated answer. So I probably should have just stopped where I said I don't
No,
know,
it's okay. It's
and
okay.
not
You're
said
the
anything
you're the
else.
CFA after all, or you're
No, I am not. I
you.
just passed level one.
I
That's
know,
not,
right?
I don't want to get in trouble.
I meant to backtrack. Cool.
That's all right.
Well,
Yeah,
that's,
if you say it, but
this this has been a blast. Any closing thoughts either on sourcing data ethically, organic growth, tech stacks, or the market that's about to crash or maybe not crash?
No, again, I really appreciate you helping to advance the conversation because I think one of the things that I particularly love about LinkedIn is the opportunity to engage with other advisors because I think that's the best thing that we can do is have good, intelligent conversations in front of consumers about how we can make the profession better rather than yelling at each other about whose fee model is the best. So
Yeah,
hopefully, to close, inviting everybody else who's an advisor who sees this to, let's have a good conversation about this.
yeah, for sure. All right, awesome. Well, thanks, Tim, for coming on, and we will see you in LinkedIn, in school, and all the other places.
Sounds good. Thanks, Joe.
All right, talk to you later. Bye bye.